presentation showtime is getting close, but you need to power up your slides to blockbuster status before you get on the stage. Hi, this is Les, and this is Module 5 of our 6-part Master Series. In this Power Up, preparing for a PowerPoint presentation tutorial, I will show you tips and tricks and strategies for creating a sophisticated PowerPoint slide deck. Specifically, I will cover strategies for setting up all of your slides, the required slides for every presentation, tricks for managing large or team presentation, first-class animation to bullet points, sophisticated slide transition tactics, and lastly, tips on presenting remotely via Zoom or other video conferencing tools. So let's power up to setting the stage for your presentation. Setting the stage for your presentation. This video is our 5th lesson in the Mastering PowerPoint training series, and all of our hard prep work will now start to pay off by way of creating a magnificent stage for all of our previously created slides. It's time to shine the spotlight on our ideas. In our YouTube training intro, I have already introduced our lesson plan, so there's no need to repeat our goals. However, I want to point out 2 things. First, unlike her other lessons 1 through 4 with screen capture software animation, this session will utilize PowerPoint slideshow mode with the built-in Microsoft animation to demonstrate how you too can add sparkle to your presentations. Although, when I'm out of the slideshow mode, I will use my third-party tools to zoom in and highlight the screen. Secondly, if you want to see behind the curtains, I'm making this presentation file available as a free download at our website of http://power-up.training. Having a creation strategy is critical. It's much like creating a movie. The sequence of steps is critical. Start with an idea, and then a script, and storyboarding, filming, and editing. The steps must follow an order. And the same holds true for the creation of PowerPoint slides. Following the plan, or you will do extra work later. Step 1, the creation of your ideas. I don't care how flashy and pretty your presentation is. It will not cover up for the lack of content. You must have strong ideas converted to words and then organized into a logical progression. As covered in my YouTube Lesson 1, Creating Slides from Scratch, the best way to do this is with PowerPoint outlines. Outlines rule. Step 2, design. Once you have your ideas in place, you then need to go and select the appropriate PowerPoint design template. The design template not only sets the look for your presentation, but also controls the specific locations for items on the page. If you do the design template selection later in the process, you risk messing up any customization that you've made to individual slides. I covered this in my YouTube lesson number 3. Step 3, slide customization. Now go through each slide, one slide at a time, and tweak the message with elements that add to the communications of your text ideas. Add enhancements such as text or graphs or images, which I'll cover in Lesson 4, Advanced Slide Design. Step 4, brutal editing. Go back and review everything. Edit the flow of the presentation, the logic, the spelling, the grammar. Why? Because if you jump to bullet animation and you do some brutal editing afterwards, you risk having to go back and redo some of the animations on any new lines of text that you have added from your editing. Do it now. Step 5, adding animation. Once your edits are locked in, add the bullet animations like you're seeing here. See how the bullet points have been appearing as I cover the points? And when done, it grays out. This is bullet animation. So is the changing highlight rectangular box that is rotating. We'll learn more, but for the time being, know that you should only do it if it is appropriate, and you can handle coordinating the timing of the clicks in the presentation. Warning, once you start this, it can become a big time sink because getting animation just right requires a lot of effort. So make sure that it's worth your time to invest in this aspect of PowerPoint. And the last step, slide transitions. With everything locked in, you can now add a touch of class with the transitions from slide to slide. Just be careful. Too much sparkle is an amateur mistake. Don't do this or this. Be careful. Do not go overboard. Bookends. Our goal is a smooth presentation, but by default, every PowerPoint ends with a hard stop by way of a blank screen. It's a harsh landing. Let's create a smooth landing for our audience by creating bookends, identical first and last slides. It's easy to do. Just duplicate the first slide, move the duplicate to the end, and that brings a neat closure to the presentation. When you hit that last bookend slide, it lets you know that you can open the presentation up to general questions or just end the presentation. It's a satisfying way to close for everyone. Agenda. Your presentation needs two agendas. The first agenda is knowing your goal. We discussed the idea in our first lesson that every presentation must have a point. You must have a call to action. Otherwise, why even give the presentation? The second agenda is the actual slide that tells your audience why they need to listen to your presentation. State the call to action. What do you want them to do, or what do you want them to think about once the presentation is concluded? Make the agenda the second slide, and then duplicate that slide and make it the next to the last slide. Always be closing. Look how we accomplished this in our training presentation. I did alter the closing slide by changing the bullet points to checkmark icons. Special techniques. I'm about to show you several specific advanced techniques. You will not use these in all your presentations, but it's good to know that they exist and be aware when they might come in handy. Special note. Did you notice that something happened in our presentation? The slide design changed color from blue to indicate that we are changing topics. My specific green color choice is overboard, but I wanted you to see it happen. This is simple to do, but you're going to have to wait a few moments for us to cover sections a little later in our presentation. Build slides. So far, you've witnessed bullet animation during this training presentation. It's when the bullet point appears with a click. But there's another technique that's not built into PowerPoint, but one that you can construct. It's called build slides. Here, we have a view of the outline view for 3 slides. The first one is Strategies 1 Ideas. Now, let's look at slide number 2. This too comes from the outline. In the second slide, I duplicated the slide, moved the box, and changed the text. Take a look at slide number 3. The same thing. Duplicate the slide, move the box, change the text. Now, let's see it in action. This is build slide number 1. Note the specific slides has animated bullet points that build. Now, moving on to build slide number 2 with its own animated bullet points. The illusion is that it looks like we never left slide 1 because the elements are exactly in the same place. Note, we'll cover slide transitions later in this video. We do not want transitions here. We want the illusion that it is the same slide, just the inside elements are changing. And now, build slide number 3. And at the end of this build slide, I've added a hidden magic trick. The return arrow is a hyperlink to a specific slide that is farther in the sequence of slide. Once we click it, it will take us to the other location. So, we just saw how to create 3 individual slides that appears as one slide with dynamic content. Do note that there is an intentional issue with these 3 slides. Slide number 3 failed to do all capitalization on the word customize. Remember, when creating a sequence of build slides, always be consistent. Hyperlink Actions. Let's see how to build that magic trick of jumping around inside the live slide presentation timeline with mouse clicks. The clickable hyperlink can be any object, word, or phrase on the slide. Watch how this mouse icon takes us to the first title slide. And then we can click on it again to return back. Let me show you conceptually how this is done, and then we'll do it on a real slide. You need to make sure that the item, whether it be a word or an icon, is already on the page. Then you're going to go to the Insert menu. You're going to select the Action button, and you'll see this pop-up that lets us add in an action based off either a click or a mouse. Let's go ahead and do it. So let's exit out of the presentation. We're now in the PowerPoint tool. I'm going to find a slide to work on. Let's do this one and add the actual hyperlink to this icon here. We go to Insert, we choose Action, and here we have 2 choices, mouse click or mouse over. It's important to recognize, no matter which one you choose, they only work when you're running a live presentation. They don't work when you're on the canvas here. Once you do make the choice, you have the ability to choose an action. Let's take a look at the list that we're going to hyperlink to. As you do the drop down, you could go to a variety of different locations, or you could actually point to an outside file or even a video. But in our case, we want to go down there and choose a slide specifically from this presentation. So let's test it out. We do need to start the slideshow. Once we're in the slideshow, we click on the icon, and this hyperlinked icon takes us to the main first slide, where I had a waiting icon pre-made to take us back to this location. So you see, we can use hyperlinks as a clever way to add dynamic jumping around within our presentation. Here's a pro trick. Quick starting of slideshows. A major annoyance with PowerPoint and building hyperlinks or animations is to test, you need to go to the slideshow menu, and by default, that walks you through from the very beginning when you only want to test that specific slide. What a waste of time. So here's some pro tricks. One possibly would be to go to the slideshow menu, and instead of choosing from beginning, choose from current slide. The problem here is that after testing and when you exit out, you now have to click your menu to go back to animation. And that is still one click too many. You could, however, go to the very, very top, and you'll see in the shortcut ribbon that there is a slideshow icon so that you can click on that from wherever you're at and start the slideshow, but it's going to start from the beginning again. No. So here's the pro trick. Add a shortcut to the top ribbon. Let me show you how. Click on the Customize Up Side Down arrow, choose More Commands. From there, switch from Popular Commands to the Slideshow tab. Within there, you need to locate that you want to start from this slide, add it to the menu. In my case, I already have it there because I love this choice. And you'll see that we now have a new icon on the top that when we click on that, it starts right from the slide that we're in. No jumping around. It's ready to go. And that is totally cool. If, however, you have some extra memory space in your head, you could just memorize Shift F5 as a keyboard shortcut to start your presentation from wherever you're at. Hidden slides. This is not a Microsoft named feature, but a technique that I use. Hidden slides are not part of my standard presentation, but ones that I hide at the end of the presentation. I have them for just in case. Just in case someone asks me a question and I want to visually answer it with a slide. Just in case I need to go deeper in a topic by someone's request. Normally, I like to keep my presentations as short as possible and sharing only the necessary information, but I also want to be prepared for someone that wants a deeper understanding just in case. So simple, just to put these slides at the end. But the cool trick is to make them seamlessly available when needed by just a click of the mouse. We've already covered action hyperlinks, so you have all the tools. Now you just need to use your imagination to make it happen. Look more closely at our example. See how we could create the 2 extra slides, hide them at the end, and then create an action hyperlink based on the slide title to jump to these out of order, and then with the returning action hyperlink, bounce back to the slide we started from. Just a couple of tips. Always have a way to return back to the home page or the agenda page or the page you came from. Or you could create a dynamic page to launch from. In this example, we could have 4 scenario slides. Depending on how the presentation is going, you could make a mid-meeting call to only show, say, scenario 3. The trick is to make sure that you have an action hyperlink to return back to the master discussion slide. Master slide tricks. If you really get into creating these hyper slide jumps, you may find that you're putting these action link hyperlinks on every page. I can save you time by slipping into the master slide view. I've talked about master slides in our previous training sessions and have a special Power Up training video just on this topic alone. But the quick refresher is that the master slide is the style page that can control all the pages. One change in the master slide and it ripples through all of the slides. Watch. Let's put this in action. I'm going to slip out of the presentation view and go into the PowerPoint tool. From here, we're going to switch to View. I'm going to go over to Slide Master View, and here we're seeing the master slide components. At the very, very top, we see a larger slide compared to the other ones down the left side of the screen. This is the master slide, meaning anything that I put on this slide here will be reflected on every single other slide. We also are showing the various templates below. And if I choose, for example, the to content layout, any changes I make to this smaller slide will only show up on the to content templates. So let's test this out. I'm going to go up to the very top master slide, and we want to put some words in here that we could use as a hyperlink. I'm going to go ahead and insert a text box. My text box can actually be anything I want. In this case here, I'm going to use the word master just so we know that we put this on the master slide, make sure it's positioned on the slide itself. And our goal was not just to put a word on every slide, but to turn it into a hyperlink action. So we'll go into action. We're going to choose hyperlink and choose a very specific slide that we want to jump to. In this case here, we're just choosing a slide out of random here. When I click on OK and OK, that means that this word master is now a hyperlinked piece to the animation practice slide. I can now go up there and we can test this out by starting the presentation out. Once we start the presentation and start walking through it, we're going to find that the master slide shows up on every single page. And if I click on master, it will then take us to that specific strategy page. And you're also going to see the word master on our whole presentation the rest of this training session. I escaped out. I'm now going to go back to slide master, and I have to close the master view to be able to get back into our regular presentation that we can make changes. Non-linear presentations. Based on the tricks we just learned, you could now create a dynamic non-linear PowerPoint slide deck. It would give you the freedom to go to any slide at any time. Just create one central slide with pointers to all the other slides and include a return hyperlink to come back to the main central slide. This is a very dynamic way to conduct a meeting. Unlike any straight line presentation you've seen over and over and over again. But it does require you to be the circus ringmaster to run the show. PowerPoint sections. This tool of sections is not necessarily needed, and it's not visible to your audience. But it does bring some unique capabilities, especially for presentations with many slides. Let's break out of our screen show and take a look at how sections would work by going to View, and we're going to go to Slide Sorter. Here we can see all of our slides. Actually, we may want to see more slides by zooming down from the bottom corner so that we can see a selection of our slides, and you'll see that I already have some sections in place where I can click next to the section name to collapse or expand the area. Let's do this. Let's choose a few slides that we want to create a new section. I'm going to highlight the strategy section. I've got a selection. I'm going to hold on to my shift key and click again. I have a bunch created. Then I'll go ahead and choose add section. As I choose add section, I need to give it a name. So in this case here, let's call it strategy slides. We'll choose rename. And now they've been grouped together. And this is where the magic starts to come into place. Not only can I group them together, but I can now start to add specific designs that are applied only to this section and not the rest of the presentation. Let's take a look. I could use sections as a way to rearrange the presentation by moving a section up and down within the presentation itself. But my favorite part of sections is the ability to change the design of just that one section. Normally, when I go up to design and choose a new color scheme or template, it impacts the whole presentation. But here, I can just change a specific section, and there's advantages to changing a section color. It is great if I want my audience to know that I'm changing topics, or if I'm doing a team presentation, we're changing presenter. Remember, I used this as a transition to the special techniques earlier with my wickedly green title slide. Use your imagination of how you might apply it. Animation. Here, we're going to learn how to use your animation powers for good or for cheesy. Animation can help center the attention of the viewer on what you want them to focus on, or, if used badly, distract them from what you're talking about. So what is animation? Let's work with text animation, or specifically bullet point builds. As you can see, I have my first set of bullet points displayed so that you can't see the rest of the page. Now we focus on just the text bullet points. In this example, I brought them as a single major bullet point with the 3 sub-bullet points. They're all related, and this is fine to show all 3 at once. You could elect to bring them in one line at a time, but I find that I can get lost in the middle of a presentation. My ability to walk and chew gum is challenged, so it follows that I can struggle presenting my slide deck in front of a crowd and my boss and forgetting to click the advance button to bring up each and every line. I like to group them together and focus on what I'm saying, and we'll see how we can do this in a moment. Objects can also be animated to make a stage entrance when you want to drive home a point and stand out like a yellow umbrella. There are so many options: when, how, what to do after you move on the screen. See how the colors of the previous scene bullet points have receded with the lighter blue? So many choices. I've created a separate training video on a deep dive into animation, but let's do a run through now. So I'm bringing it out of the presentation view, and what I want to do is see how we can animate these text bullet points. I'm going to do it as a group, so you'll see that we selected the whole group. I'm going to go to animation, and I want to choose something that jumps out, not one I would normally use in a presentation, but let's choose fly in so you can see. Once I click it, it previews as it's going to go. Take a note that it's going to take 5 clicks to go through this whole collection. That number is important, 5, and we'll come back and see why. You'll see that the first text is a collection, the what is for text with the 3 sub-bullets, and we can go in there and make additional changes. The first part of the effects option will be based off the type of animation you chose, in this case in fly-in, so we can choose the direction of the fly-in. The second part has to do with how they appear on a sequence. In our case here, we have the first set showing up as paragraphs, meaning each bullet and sub-bullet shows up as a collection. But we can fix that. I'm going to go into something new called the animation pane, and from here, we can see all 5 click items and how they're grouped together. The first click is going to bring up the first 4 items. I'm going to highlight that group. I'm now going to go in and I'm going to right click and tell it to start on click, and watch what happens. We just went from 5 clicks to 8 clicks, meaning that the first 4 items line by line need to be clicked through the presentation. Let's take a look. Start up the presentation from this slide. Click, second click, third click, fourth click, fifth click, 6 as a group, 7 as a group, and the 8th would be the let's do it. So you can see here that we can control that. We can actually go into some very specific controls. In this case here with that group, I now want to say that after this item has been shown, we want to change the color to dim out to a lighter blue. When we click on OK, you'll see that instead of being black, after it's been seen, the next slide will come in black and the previous ones will turn to the lighter blue. That is pretty cool. And as I said before, we can work with objects too. I'm going to select the object. I'm going to go ahead and choose one of the animation. Let's again go a little over the top by choosing grow and turn. And when we look at the animation pane, we'll see that picture number 4 is the very last thing to animate. Let's drag it up so that it shows up between, let's say, the second and third bullet point. And let's test it out. Click 1, click 2, and here should come the object. Click 3, click 4, continuing on with our various bullet points. There is much more that can be done, so do look for our separate Power Up training that is dedicated to animation. But do show some restraint. Too much action on your screen will make you look like an amateur, and too many different styles look chaotic. Stick with 1 or 2 slide styles and avoid what I'm showing you now. Making your presentation dance does not make it sing with authority. You will not make up for a lack of strong ideas. Always match your style with your audience. Do feel free to have some fun in a non-professional setting. Our previous topic of animation was all about what is happening on a single slide. Transitions are all about what happens between slides. By default, PowerPoint just does a hard cut between slides, replacing one after another. But you can do a more subtle set of cuts or transitions between slides with this tool. This can be done almost in any view, but I like to work in the slide sorter view, as this shows the presentation as a collection of slides. We're going to break out of our presentation and we'll switch over to the slide sorter view. Select a slide and then go to the transition menu. And yes, you can flip that around. With a single slide, when you choose a transition, it will come as you move from the previous slide to the one you're highlighting. Let's try one out and test it out. I'm going to go with one of the over-the-top choices here. Let's test fall over. We'll go up and do a presentation preview. And sure enough, bingo, there it falls down. Like I say, it's a little over the top, but you can see what the transition is as you go between slides. It is that simple. Other than the variety of choices, there's very little else to customize, other than the duration, which can be sped up or slowed down based off the effect. Note that the preset speeds will vary based on the selected effect. If you find one that fits, then select Apply to All to make it stick. But be careful. Remember our earlier example of creating build slides? Those 5 slides, we wanted to have hard cuts to give the illusion of a single slide. So in that case, we would not want to apply all the transitions. One last item. Take a quick look at the slide sorter view, and you can see a small shooting star emblem on the bottom right corner indicating that either a slide transition or an object animation has been applied to that slide. Go ahead, click on the shooting star and see a miniature preview of all of the animations. Transitions. And of course, I'll be preaching restraint on transitions. In fact, if you look at the drop-down box for transitions, you will see the categories of subtle, exciting, dynamic content. Stick to subtle. The other ones can be over the top, like Ferris wheel, which makes me dizzy. Lastly, be careful in sharing on video conferences. Almost all of the online meeting software tools, be it Zoom, Microsoft Teams Meetings, WebEx, will let you share your desktop application. And if you're presenting PowerPoint online, you need to plan accordingly. Here's some things to consider when designing your PowerPoint. You don't control the way people are watching your presentation. They can be on their iPad or TV or tiny laptop or tinier smartphone. So design with big fonts and beware of detailed graphs and tables. You don't control their bandwidth or even your upload speed, so stay away from fancy color schemes that use gradient backgrounds, because those may no longer look quite right. Look at this. I selected a crazy over-the-top background, and even in this YouTube video with high definition, the gradation may look strange as we go from green to blue. If I try to get fancier, maybe not prettier, it starts to look bad because of pixelization. So be aware of that for remote presentations. Attempt to keep it simple. And if you really need to show details and it's important that they see your presentation, consider saving it as a PDF and emailing it in advance. But be warned, people may skim it in advance and not pay as close attention when you're presenting it live because you no longer control what they see. Closing agenda. So there you go. We now have many new tools in our PowerPoint Power Up Toolbox to better illustrate our ideas. And as you can see, we've come full circle with our closing slide that summarizes all that we've accomplished, as this was one of our tips to have a closing agenda and a bookend closing slide. So now you're closer to becoming a PowerPoint master. There you go. Follow these techniques to put the finishing touches on your professional presentation. If you have questions, leave them in the comments below. And if you want more Power Up training videos, press the like button and subscribe to follow me on YouTube. Subscriptions help support the channel. And if you want a copy of the actual presentation used in this video, so as to better study how we did these tricks, visit us at power-up.training and download the PowerPoint file. Next up is the final session in our series, giving a professional PowerPoint presentation. I will show you the final steps to make sure that your presentation shines the brightest in front of your audience. Click here or start the complete PowerPoint training by clicking the playlist by clicking over here. Until then, go power up.